Hello, welcome to another episode of Drainism. I'm Tony, the host, the person uploading the videos. You may have noticed that I very quickly started doing these videos out of order in terms of Blade's discography, what he's released first. Basically, I'm just trying to feel out the vibe of which episode I should talk about, because if I'm not feeling a particular project at a particular time, I don't think I'm going to be able to interpret it or explain it as well. But that's just a personal thing. So my plan still is to do Blade's entire discography. I just might cover the big ones first. I know I kind of didn't clarify that in the beginning. I thought it was going to be more chronological, but let's stick with the big ones first, right? And I got my buddy Blade sitting right next to me. Yo, what's up, dude? High five. Anyways, so yeah, without further ado, let's get into Exeter. It says Exeter's Blade's third solo studio project, or sodium. Why am I saying sodium? Exeter is Blade's third studio album and 11th project. So kind of fitting. We just went over 333, and now we're going over Exeter. So this album is very special to me. It helped me in a very scary and unsure time of my life. I remember just walking outside, putting this on, and I was able to just escape into Blade's melodic entrancement, if that's even a word. I was entranced. So, Mirror Him intro. Right off the bat, what are we saying? This is the intro to the album. Blade loves to do intros and outros. I kind of explained that a little bit more. Let me just make sure that stays still for the most part. Yeah. So Mirror, Blade says in Reality Surf, mirror, mirror, the reflection of the law. And so what does that mean, right? When Blade talks about a mirror, you think of a mirror, it's like you're looking at yourself, but you're not actually looking at yourself. You're just looking at a reflection of yourself. We have no idea truly how we look like except through a mirror. I think it was going off kilter because I had the camera not shifted in the right perspective. But even right now, when I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at an image. I'm not actually looking at the pure essence that is me, the me that everyone else sees. But he says, mirror, mirror, the reflection of the law. And so what does that mean? Well, if you're going through this based on a Christian perspective, which Blade often likes to tie in, he likes to tie in not just Christian, but religious spirituality elements. The law of God is written on our hearts. So when we see a reflection of ourselves, mirror, mirror, the reflection of the law, we're seeing God's law by looking at a mirror, okay? Because he's written his word on our hearts. This could be a stretch. This is how I interpret it. But that's not even what this is. This just says mirror him, okay? So him is typically associated with religiosity. It's something they'll say in the church, they'll say at mass, they'll say at a prayer service, they might sing a hymn. And a hymn is just supposed to be a song that's glorifying God, right? So the first track of Exeter is a hymn. Mirror in the Way. So at first, this is how Blade starts, when he meshes contradictory themes, and some people don't really get it or understand it. I'm not saying I do either entirely either. Like, why would he switch between something light and something dark? But he says the mirror's in the way, okay? So it means he's trying to see himself, how he truly is, but all he can see is a reflection of himself, right? And that could be distorted. Like, what if your mirror's cracked? Or what if you have, dirt on your mirror? What if you don't get a mirror from a high manufacturer? It's in the way, And so Blade, I think he's saying we need to take out our ego, and remove the mirror, because the mirror shows us ourselves, and it's comforting. I kind of think of, what was it, that Greek story with Narcissus where he looked into the pond, you know, and he got enraptured, or really obsessed with his own image, so it can be a good thing to reflect on yourself, but it can also be a bad thing to only focus in hard on yourself. So follow all the way, mirror in the way, ego in the way, right? He says it straight up, the mirror and ego, it's like the same thing. But he says, I go all the way. I'm not in the way. So he's not, so it can be confusing. You're walking down this road of life and you confront yourself and you think about, your trials, your tribulations, your problems, your relationships, and that can almost, and your past too, you're thinking about your past, and that can almost be a block on the road to enlightenment or to paradise or whatever you want to call it. So he's saying, ego in the way, I go all the way, I'm not in the way. So he's realizing that it's not just him who's stopping him from reaching this spiritual enlightenment. It could be a reflection of himself that's blocking him. It could be his own ideas. Like Blade says, he's addicted to his status. Maybe that's what's keeping him from achieving this enlightenment. Because Exeter is kind of an in-between album in terms of spirituality. Like, it's like you had Red Light, Working on Dying, Ever Since, Glue. These had some of those, but they were mainly just like trap songs, rapping about, drugs and the fast life and stuff like that. Not to shoehorn, those interpretations. Obviously, I'm going to look at those albums as well, and they're going to have deep meaning as well. But specifically for this album, it's like a transition. Think of like Working on Dying and 333 and Crest, and then Exeter's kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit more towards Crest and 333. So he just repeats follow all the way, mirror in the way, ego in the way. The only different lines he says is, I go all the way, I'm not in the way. Okay, so we can think about what that means. Moving on to track 2, and that is Wonderland. Kid just flew by on a bike, full speed. Echo 2K starts out this one. Acid eat through my teeth, ultraviolets, infrareds. Break into 1,000 pieces, I feel like Ravenhead. So acid is a motif or a theme that comes up a lot in Drain Gang Blade's lyrics, right? So if you think about acid as something that, it's a liquid and it eats away at whatever it touches, right? So Blade often talks about acid rain, and he connects it to the image of rain, and we've talked about that before, how rain can bring a rainbow, but when we're talking about acid eating through his teeth, this can be interpreted in multiple ways. It could either be that he's receiving wisdom, in the form of acid rain, but it's burning his teeth. It could also be that maybe he's doing a lot of drugs, like maybe he actually means acid as in the drug, probably. And it's eating through his teeth, and it's eating through his ego, if you were to tie it back to Mirror Him intro. Innocence and evil super glued together, This is like heavily talked about in 333, but just now they're starting to talk about good and evil. Innocence and evil are not two separate concepts, but they rely on each other and they have to coexist together. We can't have good without evil. We can't have evil without good. Now, this is a dilemma, or not even a dilemma, but it's just a logical, philosophical thing that people have argued about for centuries. Some people think, no, we can separate the two concepts, but in reality, it's a spectrum. And there are things that have good and evil qualities, and there are good things that have evil qualities, or evil components, and then there's evil things that have good qualities or good components, right? So swallowing my feelings tastes like sweetness. He has these feelings that he has this enlightenment, but he can't be open and upfront about it because it's overwhelming, right? So he just swallows the feelings. Blade go, if you were to tell a story, how would it go? In 333, Blade says he's the hero of his story. But here he's just asking us, like, what do you guys think about your story? How would it go? You know, how are there things that happen in your life that are like high points for your character arc? Are there low times? Is there a conflict? Is there a resolution? If you were to tell a story, how would it go? So Blade, his whole discography is him talking about his story, history, but his story. But he's asking us, what is your story? If you were to tell a story, how would it go? And I think a lot of times we're too wrapped up in the reality of things that we forget that life is essentially a story that's unfolding in real time, right? So when Blade says, if you were to tell a story, how would it go? He's saying, if you were to explain all the events in your life, would they connect? Would they have meaning? Would they have meaning to you? Would it be a story that makes sense? Would it be a happy story, a sad story, all in between? Blade wants you to look at that, and he goes, Wonderland, Wonderland. Immediately I think of Alice in Wonderland, that children's story, of course, the famous one where she falls in the well, or in the hole, and ends up in this whole different reality. So then Echo goes, give love a chance, okay? Because overall, none of this matters unless we have love, okay? It doesn't matter if you've let go of your ego. It doesn't matter if you've found the right path. It doesn't matter if you're happy or fulfilled in life. What matters is love. Do you love first something bigger than yourself, or something that you can't explain, but also, and perhaps maybe more importantly, like, do you love your friends, the bonds you've made along the way, your family, I break the wall. That's like Blade saying, I'm breaking the fourth wall of my music. Like, I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about you. And then I think in 333 he says, it could do for you what it did to me. My voice is way better than that. I apologize. Go check out some of my music if I mean, I use autotune, but anyways. It could do for you what it did to me. Reaching this spiritual spot. Reaching this better understanding. So that's why he breaks the wall. When he wishes upon a star, yeah, I'm charged up trash star. Remember, he's someone who's come up out of all his baggage, out of all his trash, out of all his sins, and he has experienced, a greater power. Dance in the night, give love a chance. Another and again, give love a chance. So this is low-key talking about forgiveness, because what does Jesus say? You have to forgive your enemies 70 times 7. So when they repeat and another and again, give love a chance, they just keep repeating it. It could just be interpreted as bad lyricism. Oh, they had no idea what to write. No. They very intentionally repeated these lyrics because they're focused on getting the message through. They're not focused on... Well, they are to some extent making a good song, but they're more focused on the message of the song and how that message is relayed, right? Anyways, let's move on to track 3, Merry-Go-Round. Dreaming in a Dream, okay? If you've watched Inception, you'll know exactly what Blade's talking about. If you haven't watched Inception and you've experienced this yourself, you'll know what Blade's talking about. If none of those apply to you, let me try to explain. In dreams, you can be dreaming in your head, and then yourself in that dream can go into another dream. And if it keeps going like that crazy, it's like this infinite, possible selves in your dream. So when he's dreaming in a dream, it's like sometimes he could be referring to what he experiences when he actually goes to sleep, but maybe he could be referring to life, because he does say life is a dream, but I'm never sleeping in Car Wash, right? So life is a dream, but I'm never sleeping. And now he's dreaming in a dream. He's dreaming in real life, right? So it has kind of like two interpretations, Go 3-star, go, go, go. Merry-go-round, it's all in my head, got imaginary friends. So this is him kind of delving into that absurdist, like, can we even tell if we're dreaming right now type of thing. Oops. It's all in my head, I have imaginary friends. If life is a dream, then all his friends are imaginary. So he's kind of like, not fully, but playing with the idea of solipsism. That's that we're the only mind that exists. He's playing with that idea. But he also says, castles made of cards and I watch it go down. So he's talking about, I believe in one of his songs he said 3 castles in the sand. And so that's bad in itself, because it's like, oh, the castles are going to fall through the sand. They don't have a rock or bedrock to support it. But now he's saying the castles are also made of cards. Like life is a game, in a sense. That's why the castles are made of cards, and he watches it fall down. And what happens when it falls down? Either you quit playing with the cards, you're just like, I'm done, or you get back to rebuilding it very slowly and very delicately. Okay? So you have to kind of like take these motifs that Blade mentions to the extreme, and you have to stretch the conclusion if you're going to gain any meaningful value. Well, no, I won't say that. You can still gain meaningful value from the songs, but you're not going to be viewing it in the same way that Blade is, in the same way that Echo 2K is, in the same way that Thai Boy is. All of them. Young Lean, right? Merry-go-round. Merry-go-round. So imagine, he's saying, like, life is a dream, he's stuck in a trance, he's just on the fun ride. He's on the fun ride of life. But the merry-go-round never stops. It may stop briefly to let a few more passengers on. Maybe you're on the carousel, or the merry-go-round, the merry-go-round, and you're like, hey, come on, it's fun, come up here, But then once you get up there, it's fun for a little bit, but could you imagine being on a merry-go-round for the rest of your life? It would be mind-numbingly awful, But Blade kind of like shows how content he is to be on this merry-go-round. Time will stand still. I come in, open up, and I fall in. I fall into my into myself, into sin, into the trash, It's just like in a fairy tale, but not enough, it's just not true enough. So the story that he's following, whether it's his story, whether it's the Bible story, whether it's the Quran's, whether it's some other person's interpretation, whether it's a real or fictional story, it's not true enough for Blade. I think all stories have elements of truth to them. Even if they didn't historically happen, they might say something about ourselves. They might say something about society. They might say something about the political climate or the bad atmosphere that's out there. So all stories, fictional or true, or ones that combine them both, they all have elements of truth. But Blade is saying that his story is not true enough. He wants it to be more true, right? So that's kind of why he hops on the merry-go-round. Maybe it's like misleading, like he hops on and he thinks, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, You know, eventually something new will happen, but you think about the line, um, where it's just like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, you know. So that's something that you think about. He repeats merry-go-round many times, and the top genius comment is Blade is on a merry-go-round. So, yeah. Anyways, that's kind of how I feel that song, what that song's about. It's just like feeling stuck. If you want to take it to a super basic level, it's feeling stuck in the merry-go-round of life, you know, and you just keep going and going and going. You're never moving up, you're never going down, you just keep going in circles in the same spot. And it's fun for a little bit. But at some point you need to hop off and stop dreaming that anything better is going to happen by sitting on a merry-go-round, right? Rain 3-0 star, love is all. No, it's just rainbow star. Or that's how I would pronounce it. But instead of the B, he puts a 3. The 3, when it's lined up against the N, it can kind of look like a B. So I see why he did that. Something in your eye, glitter in the sky, rainbow star, I love my faith. Go into my future open arms. So this is interesting because a lot of time, or before this album, Blade would mention stuff with spirituality, but then say, but kind of insinuate that like he doesn't get it. Young Lean says, I don't F with church, man. You know, Blade in another album, it's The Fool. So this came after, but he says, I'm not Christian, but I'm busting down the cross, you know. Rainbow Star, I love my faith. So I think of like the More You Know. I think it's from Reading Rainbow or something, or it's on PBS. And it's like a rainbow with the star at the end. That's what I think about when I think about this song. Love is all. I think of the Beatles. Love is all you need, right? So when he goes into the song, he says he goes into the future open arms. He allows the pain to come in. He allows the goodness to come in. He allows everything to come in, you know? And the reason why he's able to do that and not be overwhelmed is because he has faith. And he doesn't just say he has faith. He says he loves his faith. Now, I may quarrel with Blade personally on this one because I think faith is stupid and should not be required, but I get that it's necessary, right? And I get that we have to love God. I don't know if I necessarily love my faith in God, but I have it, right? And so this is where it can get kind of confusing. But Blade is saying he loves his faith. He loves the feeling of peace. And I can say that I do enjoy the peace as well, but it came with a lot of turmoil and hardship to get to where I am spiritually. Right? And same for Blade. Maybe he's on a higher echelon than me that he can say he loves his faith, you know. In the final fall, spring is never far, you know. Life is just a ticking time clock, you know. It's like a merry-go-round, you know. But it's like a merry-go-round with stops, you know. And sometimes you reach a point where you think you can hop off, but you can't hop off in time and it just keeps going, so you might miss an opportunity, you know. Or sometimes the carousel breaks, or the merry-go-round breaks, and you're stuck in one spot. You know, that can also happen. Love is all. White gloves for this world. Sugar is my girl. You know, talking about how he wants his girl to be sweet, the one he wants to fall in love with. Something in your eye, glitter in the sky, rainbow star. So he is like connecting. When he looks at a girl and he sees her beauty of who she is, he sees a glitter and he sees something in her eye, you know, whether it's like, it's basically like Blade's reading your vibe, you know, and he's connecting it to his vibe. So he sees the glitter in your eye, he sees the star in your eye, and then he sees the star in the sky, you know, and he connects those. Spring is never far. Well, that's true. But also, summer's never far and winter's never far, depending on where you are in the season cycle. But Blade talks about a real spring. It's kind of like, that's a song that he does with Skrillex, Real Spring. It's kind of like a, a resurrection of sorts of everything we've been doing in our life. Like, it's busy, 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 and then Easter time, everything feels happy, everything feels great. Then it starts to get hot in the summer, and then really cold in the fall and winter, and then we're still looking towards the spring. We need to spring up from our bad habits, and go into the future with open arms, right? Going into the future accepting the absurdity of life, but also the beauty of life, the randomness of life, but also the consistency of certain things in life, right? Outro, blood, blood, blood. How do you go into the future with open arms if you haven't bled yourself of your ego or your wants or your desires, right? You would be going into the future with closed arms. No, you have to open it up, and sometimes that means you're going to get cut. Hence, blood, blood, blood. In my opinion. He also says it 3 times, which is interesting. Love is all. Love is all you need. Alright. Moving on to track 5. Every Moment Special. I love this song. Glory, fame are the first two words, okay? Now, you think they're tied together, and a lot of times you can be famous and that can be glorious, but you can also have glory and be famous, but you can also have fame and no glory, and you can have glory and no fame, right? So it's all a spectrum. Blade is trying to tell us that things are not black and white, but he presents them in a way that is black and white, if that makes any sense. He very quickly goes from a dark motif to a light motif and switches back and forth, But ultimately he's saying that, you can't call a line straight without the other line being crooked, like a C.S. Lewis, Glory, fame, every moment special, you make every moment special. Again, he's talking about either a girl, either God or a higher power. Only one wish. It has to be perfect. His story has to be perfect. That's his wish. Now, I think Blade is going to be heavily disappointed because we're not supposed to have perfect stories, in my opinion. Only God, higher power can. We are supposed to have stories where we are true to ourselves, but as Blade says in Cold Visions, in one of his tracks, only God is made perfect. Right? So, let's actually bring this inside, because I didn't realize. I did not realize there would be a loud lawnmower providing sound where there should be no sound. Give you a little look at the Exeter vinyl. And now let's go right back into it. Right back into it. This is terrible. Well, maybe I'm getting watch time. Yeah, so every moment special, you make every moment special. Blade could be talking about God through his faith, which he loves. He could also be talking about a girl. Only one wish, baby, it has to be perfect. So, he really just wants to make sure that his life is following a true story but he also wants it to be the perfect true story. And this, I think, is unattainable, but I think it's a good dream to have. So far my life story has been filled with truth, but it's also been filled with lies and hardships and struggles, right? It's funny because with this particular song on Genius, Only God is Made Perfect is a You Might Also Like. I didn't even see that at first. It's interesting. All right, so let's move on to the 6th song, DNA Rain. I think I can feel you. I think I can heal you. What does that mean? Well, Blade is saying that he thinks he can help us achieve the same spirituality, faith, and enlightenment that he has. He thinks he can. And I would say he succeeded, because I was, an atheist for a long time, but I always recognized that Blade's lyrics meant something more that I just couldn't grasp onto. I never thought I would fully understand what his lyrics meant, and I don't claim to fully understand what they mean now, but I have a better understanding of what they mean just by trying to look at it through his eyes, right? And it's changed my life perspective as well. We're going up and away. Up and away. Now, so it's like a lot of these songs, they're repeating the same lyrics over and over again. But what makes them good is that the message is extremely important, even though it's simple, right? Blade is saying, I think I can help you, heal you even, and feel you. Like, be at two places at once through the music he creates. It's essentially what he's saying. All right, we got 3 more left. Sorry I had to bring you out of the outside. As you can see, Jesus is helping someone out of the water right there. I had to take you out of the loud outside and bring you in the controlled environment of the inside. Open symbols play Be in Your Mind. Be in your mind, be in your mind. You should be in your mind. Blade's saying, like, I'm in your mind because I'm releasing music and you're listening to it, so I'm in your mind, but you should also be in your mind. Don't just act like you're a video camera observing life as it happens to you. You have to be in your mind, and you have to figure out what your beliefs are, what your values are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, if you have any, right? So he repeats it over and over again. Got the chalice, take the challenge. I'm not special. Blade does not purport to be the only one who has access to this knowledge. Sometimes he kind of does. He says, like, he's the gatekeeper of the knowledge, in Working on Dying, I believe. But he says, got the chalice, take the challenge. That's like the Holy Grail, It's like something that people think existed at one point, but it's never been found. It had powers, apparently. It's been talked about in mythology. It's been talked about in history. It's been talked about in Indiana Jones. So he takes the challenge of faith, because faith is really hard to have. It's really hard to believe in something without concrete evidence, right? But he's taking the chalice and he's taking the challenge. And he's sipping from the cup, just like, if you're thinking about it from a Christian's perspective, just like the apostles sipped, from Jesus's cup at the Last Supper, right? Take the challenge. Cleansing with the soap, okay? So remember, he's coming from trash. He's got acid raining on him. He's bleeding, but he's cleaning it all with soap, okay? But then he goes back into the night, and assumingly he gets dirty again, right? You can't go into the darkness of night without tripping on some trash or encountering some acid rain. But it's not a joke anymore. He's not just like, haha, I guess I maybe believe in a greater purpose, whatever. He goes, whatever. But he realizes it's true, but also he says it's easy. It's so easy. Because when you're thinking about achieving spiritual enlightenment, you think you have to read all these books and you have to listen, you have to think, you have to meditate for hours, but really you just have to say, I trust in the man upstairs, and if I have my own ego or some wants that I have, I just let it go. So it's easy. It's so easy. Can you feel it? Can you feel something? When I listened to this song, I felt the peace, but I didn't feel the message. So that's what really attracted me to this album at first, was I was just listening to it, and even though he was repeating his melodies and his words, I wasn't that focused on the words as much as I was the production and the song itself. I was like, oh, the words are an afterthought, but no, they're a forethought, and he combines it all together, right, with the beats to make it a cohesive project, right? And again, he's not special, okay? He's not the only one who views the world this way. He's not the only one who's received God's love. Everyone's received God's love, whether they believe he exists or not. And speaking of love, we're going right into love story. Everything came back to me. Every path leads back to you again. So all of... how they say when you love something, let it go. If it comes back, you'll know it was true love. Echo has let go of all his desires, okay? But then they all came back because he had faith, right? Every path leads back to you again. So they talk about the path of the straight and narrow, and that's how you get to heaven, and then there's the crooked path. But what they're saying, at least what Echo's saying here, is you're always going to be redeemed. There's no possibility that you're not going to be redeemed as long as you follow a path. But the crooked path is definitely going to be a lot more painful and harder than the straight path, right? But every path leads to God. Or, if you want to still take this as a girl reference, everything came back to me. Maybe he got reunited with his girlfriend or his lover or whatever. Perfect, you got perfect details, like my skin, baby, perfect details. Everyone thinks it's so special. So, here, he's mostly talking about the girl. But he's saying, you're perfect, but only to me and only to everyone else. Everyone thinks it's special. And it feels like he's in a love story. So Blade is almost having a spiritual vision of him with this perfect girl, and they have the perfect love, and that's his dream. And he says he's dreaming in a dream because he says life is a dream. So he's really trying to, when he says I want to be the hero of my story, he's trying to author it. And I think we do play a part, because of free will in writing our own stories, but God ultimately is holding our hand and positionally guiding the ink. As soon as we start to go out of whack, he's like, hey, come on, let me bring you back on track. But then you're like, no. And then if you keep pushing away from God or a higher power, boom. Now he's like, okay, hands back. You're on your own. And then you have to, if you want to come back, you gotta pray and blah blah blah. Just like in a love story, make the city smell like perfume, make the streets smell like flowers. He's just setting up a visual. It's like in a novel where the first 2 chapters will be about about what the building looks like or what the outside area looks like. He's doing that in his songs, right? And he's doing it in a lot shorter amount of time. Just like a daydream, you know. The city smells like perfume, the streets smell like flowers. The streets aren't full of trash anymore, because this isn't real life. This is the dream that Blade is talking about, right? Oh, and Young Good was a producer. Shout outs to Young Good. Or just Good. I'm sorry if I was about to say misgendered. I'm sorry if I misnamed Good. He's no longer young anymore. Imaginary, the last track. We still hold stripes, D9 Crazy Life with the pins on me. We dance on ice. Sochi Olympics 2003. So, I think that what Blade is trying to say is that when he mentions D9 Crazy Life with the pins on me, it's like he's got his shield, right? He's got his armor with his spiritual journey, but it hurts. Like there's pins on it. But that's the only way it can stay attached, right? You think about like nailing a picture, you have to hammer in the nail, right? So there's like pain involved, but then it's there, it's stuck forever, right? We dance on ice, ice is something that could break and you could fall in the cold water, the cold depths, but they're dancing. He's dancing. We have faith that we're going to be okay, even though rationally we might know that if we dance on the ice, it could break and be thin and we could die. We're trusting that someone else is controlling that. Sochi Olympics 2003, I don't know a whole lot about the Sochi Olympics. Okay, they apparently featured figure skating. And yeah, Ice Dancer is an album we'll get to. He's referencing Ice Dancer. But also, if you just think about the Olympics, it's the only time where most, if not all, of the countries take away their differences or put them away, all the conflict, and they compete in a competition that has the whole world watching and everyone's excited and everyone's being communal, right? But it's Sochi Olympics 2003 because 3 is an important number. I can only close my eyes, I can't do anything. Bring me back to life. That's a Thai Boy album. Maybe Thai Boy stole it from Blade. No, I'm just kidding. They all work together. Dreaming in a dream. Close my eyes, can't do anything. So Blade talks about going into the night. And how, if it's daytime, how can you go into the night? Well, you close your eyes. And it's black, just like the night is. Right? And that's the only thing he can do. It's very interesting. Heart on the sleeve, oceanside with the coral reef. He's imagining his special place again. Right? His safe house. Right? Can't you see, baby? Can't you see? Can't you understand life in the same way that I am? And this is really interesting because I feel like I have a better understanding of how Blade sees life, and because I connect with it in my own life. But some people don't even get it or understand or are trying to understand the spiritual aspect of things, right? And so Blade is saying can't you see? Can't you see? And they might be seeing, but they could just be interpreting it like, oh, this is not a sign. This is a coincidence. Or, oh, this is not a, they might come up with tons of excuses. Leaves of a tree, ancient sights cross the 7 seas. She'll dance on me under city lights, imaginary. And then he repeats imaginary. So his dream is to be in this fantasy world with his girl, and they don't have to worry about problems because God will be protecting them. A higher power will be guiding them. So yeah, Whoa! Record time. We got the whole album done under an hour. Well, if you enjoyed the video, do whatever you want.